Before you start working on your graph, you're going to need to gather a few components. First off is this file that you want to download. Click this link to download, and that contains a vector graphic of the ice cream cone that we're going to be using. You need the information for the graph, and then there is a percentage calculator. So let's start with this vector graphic. This was obtained from a website called freepik.com, and freepik.com has a lot of free graphic resources. There's vectors and there's raster type images. For this project and for the larger project 5, you're going to want to stick with vector graphics. And this particular ice cream cone comes from a set of graphics called Food and Drink Black Icon Set. So that's this one over here. And if you were to click on that, you could download the entire set for free. And there's multiple files in the set. And I just gave you one of the files so in order to save some hard drive space, but you're welcome to go here and download all of these icons if you think you might need them. Make sure that you attribute or give credit to the artist or the source that these images are coming from if you are going to use images like this that are pre-designed and you're not designing your own. So you can find out how to do that by clicking this link, and it tells you, this is what you could put in a credit line. The credit line or the source line does include not only the source for the data that we're going to be using, but also a credit for the creator of this ice cream cone image. The data that we're going to be using comes from a table that's found on a website called Statistic Brain. When we take a look at this table, there's quite a bit in here. So one of our jobs is to figure out what the parameters of our graph are going to be. If we want to include all of this data in a single graph, it's going to be a really large graph, and it's probably not going to be that easy to comprehend. So we need to decide how much of this information do we want to include. This is for the United States, this is for the entire country, and this is data divided by region. We've got many ice cream flavors here. And, so one of the decisions is, what do we want our graph to include? Do we want to include all of this data? Do we want to include the top 10 flavors, the top 6, the top 5? How do we want to do that? Maybe we could make a graph where we compare the favorite flavor of ice cream from different regions and maybe just the top 5. For this assignment, we're just going to make it simple. We're just going to use the top 5 favorite ice cream flavors, and we're going to use data for the entire country. Now, when we look at these numbers, we also have to figure out, what do these numbers mean? Unfortunately, on this table, it doesn't really tell us. My first thought when I look at a table like this is that these represent percentages. So we could think, well, okay, 28% of people surveyed prefer chocolate. But then we realize that as we add these numbers up, it comes out to a lot more than 100. So, this would need to add up to 100%. When we add up all these numbers, we find that it equals 195. So we find out that that's the number of people surveyed and not a percentage. Our chart is based on percentages. Out of 195 people surveyed, 14% said that their favorite flavor was chocolate, 13% said vanilla, 11% said cookies and cream, and etc. How did we get the percentages from these numbers? What I did was I added up all the numbers in this column, and it equaled 195. That's 195 participants. And then I used this percentage calculator, which is available free online. For chocolate, I knew that 28 out of 195 people said that chocolate was their favorite flavor. So I went to the calculator and I put in 195 for our total and 28 for our number of people who like chocolate, and it comes out to 14.36%, which I just rounded down to 14. So that's how I came up with the numbers for the graph. When you're working on Project 5, this could be a handy tool, but you want to make sure before you start making a graph what exactly do your numbers mean, and you have to say so. You have to say this is the percentage of US adults who like these different ice cream flavors. If we say that there's a percentage of US adults, if this chart is about the percentage of US adults, then we don't have to put a percent symbol after every single number, and that helps us to simplify our graph visually. We also say that 195 is the sample size. It's how many people were surveyed. Once we have our numbers, and here they are, you can just use the numbers that I've already provided. We're going to be using Illustrator, and we're going to be using some various tools and techniques. And one of the tools that we're going to be using is the column graph tool. For this micro project, we're just going to use it in a really basic way. The purpose isn't to do a tutorial about how to use this tool. I provided a video here that I recommend that you watch, and you can experiment on your own if you want to follow along with this video. And there are many different types of graphs that you can create. You can create a pie chart, a line graph, that sort of thing. There's a lot of resources available on YouTube that can help you to learn how to use the graph tool and use the different types of graphs. If there's a particular type of graph that you're going to want to create, then you want to learn how to do that.